Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. Today's video is going to be about citizens arrest. So the inspiration for this video has come from recent events in Georgia. The Ahmaud Arbery case. It has become very popular, and the topic of citizens arrest comes up with this case because that's what the father and son are using as part of their defense. They're saying that under their state law, they have the ability to go conduct a citizen's arrest on Ahmaud Arbery. And I've been seeing comments and everything about it, and citizen's arrest has been a topic that I wanted to cover, and I thought, well, now is just as good a time as any to cover the topic of citizen's arrest. So, what is a citizen's arrest? Well, our current laws are modeled or frameworked after old laws, and citizens arrest is kind of an old law, comes from way back in the day, and it was something that was allowed for citizens to do because there just wasn't a whole lot of law enforcement officers back then. And from my light research, it was something that was kind of encouraged from sheriffs and magistrates and stuff like that. But obviously, as civilization has moved on, and throughout the decades, it's something that has become less prevalent, I guess you could say. You'll hear people talk about it. You hear people joke about it. But do people really make citizens arrest? And what does that process look like? How do you do a citizen's arrest? Where do you take them after you arrest them? Things like that is something that just general people may have some general curiosity about. But citizen's arrest, and it varies from state to state. And I'll be talking from the standpoint of Kentucky. I don't know what the other states' laws are. I don't know if they're very similar to Kentucky. It looks like Georgia's laws are very similar to Kentucky in regards to citizens arrest. But as far as the other states, I don't know. I couldn't answer that for you if you live in another state, but I can talk about Kentucky because I'm from Kentucky and it's something I've studied. When you think of an arrest, like the police arresting people, powers of arrest are basically you have the legal authority to detain a person against their will, aka legal kidnapping, I guess you could say. Under Kentucky law, citizen's arrest can be found under KRS 431.005 subsection 2. The beginning of that KRS, if you get there and you start reading it, you'll see all the literature on what Kentucky law enforcement officers, how they can make their arrests. It lays it all out. And then under subsection 2, it talks about citizen's arrest. And it basically states that a private person can arrest another person, when you basically observe a felony being committed in your presence. And so it has to be a felony type of crime that you see go on. It cannot be something that you heard from your buddy's cousin and you take action 2 days after hearing about this thing. That's illegal. Can't be doing that. It has to be something that you witness, and it has to be a felony. So the first problem that comes up is, what is a felony? You have to know the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony. Because if you try to go detain a person for just a misdemeanor kind of crime, it doesn't fit the criteria for the law. And then you're obviously going to be in trouble. There's a lot of different laws as far as what's a misdemeanor and what's a felony. There's some things that are misdemeanors that you think might be a felony, and there's some things that are felonies that you might think would be a misdemeanor. That's something you're going to have to do the research on your own. And me trying to explain all that stuff is just going to take up way too much time on this video. But you have to have a good working knowledge of Kentucky law or your state's law and know what a felony is. The other issues that come into play when making a citizen's arrest are issues that are really, in my opinion, shining more of a negative light towards the matter. I don't think that it's in most people's best interest to be trying to conduct citizen's arrest. And so when I talk about this stuff, I'm going to be talking about it from the standpoint of just a regular person who works some office job or works at a mechanic shop, just regular Joe Blow. No law enforcement background, no security background, nothing. Just regular dude or dudette, whatever. And then I'll add some commentary about security as well. So why do I think it's a bad idea to be getting involved in citizen's arrest? We'll start with just a regular citizen. As a regular citizen, you're probably not going to have any tools or training that's going to help you go effect this arrest. Meaning you may not have a gun, you may not have pepper spray, and you may not have a taser. If you have anything, it's probably going to be only a gun. And if the only thing you have is a gun, then at most, I would suspect that probably the most amount of training you've ever had was a concealed carry class. And a concealed carry class does not cover anything about arresting people. So you're walking into a situation where the only thing you have is a gun and maybe some concealed carry, quote unquote, training. This gun that you have, if it's in a holster, I'm going to speculate that it's probably not a good holster. And what I mean by that is it's not a retention holster like police or security use. It's a holster that doesn't offer any protection against someone taking your gun out of it. If it has any retention in it, it's more of a passive retention, like a Kydex holster, where when you push the gun into the holster, just the mold of the Kydex goes around the trigger guard and it kind of, quote unquote, clicks into place. You can hold the whole holster and gun upside down, the gun won't fall out, but as soon as you slap the handle on the gun comes out. A retention holster has some type of retention hood over the top of the gun. It may have a little special kind of button that you got to press to unlock the gun from the holster. It may even be a design where you have to twist the gun a certain way to make it come out of the holster. And that type of design slows a person down or prevents completely a person from being able to get that gun out of that holster if they have no idea how to do it. That's why police and security use retention holsters. Your holster, you as a regular citizen who may have a concealed carry license, your holster is not going to be like this. It's probably just going to be a regular Kydex holster, or it could just be a little regular nylon holster. So your gun can be very easily taken away from you. And that's important to note because there have been plenty of trained police officers using retention holsters who have had their gun taken away from them and was shot and killed with it. if trained police officers using retention holsters have had their guns taken away from them and they were shot and killed with it, what the hell kind of chance do you think you got going in there with your little Kydex holster? It's not realistic at all. The only tool, if you have a gun, that's the only tool you have. And so when it comes to having to use some kind of force, that may be the only tool that you're going to be using. It would be much better if you had less lethal, because that gives you options. But even if you brought pepper spray with you, or you got a taser, not a stun gun. Let's say you even brought a stun gun. I'll cover that one too. But let's start with pepper spray. Even if you brought pepper spray with you, a lot of people out there who buy pepper spray never even test spray it. They go to Walmart or wherever they buy it from. It's usually a little keychain kind of pepper spray. They'll buy it, they'll get it, they'll put it in the keychain, but they never test spray it. They don't even know how the pepper spray comes out of it and what it looks like. They don't know if it comes out in a stream, kind of like how a squirt gun shoots water out in a little stream kind of shape, or if it comes out like a mist, like you're spraying a bottle of glass cleaner. They have no idea. And so if you got this can of OC that you've never test sprayed before, you have really no idea what to expect out of it. And that, coupled with the fact that you probably never had any training whatsoever on it, if you go to use that pepper spray and the wind's blowing and it blows back in your face, now you're blinded. If you spray the person and it sprays onto them, the wind hasn't blown back onto you, and you spray them with it, chances are you're probably going to be pretty close to them, and you're still going to get a little bit on you. Some of the droplets going to be in the air. You may inhale some of it. Some of it may make its way towards your eye. When police have to use pepper spray on people, they oftentimes get some of it on them as well. And if you've never experienced what OC does to you in the middle of a fight with someone, trying to arrest them, and you're using pepper spray and you get it in your eye and your mouth, and you have that involuntary eye closure and that shortness of breath feeling like you can't breathe, you may freak out about it. If you spray the pepper spray too close to them, the terminology of a hydraulic needle is probably something you've never heard of. And if you spray your pepper spray too close to a person, you can cut the eye open, just like a stream of water can be used to cut open or cut across concrete. When the can you see right here, when that stream comes out, if you spray that too close to a person's face, that will cut a person's eye open. It's called a hydraulic needle. A stun gun. There's a difference between a stun gun and a taser. A stun gun is something you go buy at a little flea market. You know, those little cheesy piece of crap little flashlights that have a little bzzz, little stun thing on the end, where it looks like a little cattle prod looking thing. And anytime you go to the flea market and those things are around, everyone's just test firing that thing. You always hear it, so you have to know what I'm talking about. Just a little cheap stun gun. That's not doing anything to anybody. All that is a pain compliance tool, and they don't even really hurt that much. They certainly do not stop an attacker. It's not like the movies where you just touch a person with a stun gun and they pass out. That doesn't happen. That doesn't work like that. You can fight through a stun gun. You can take a stun gun and hold it up to my neck and turn it on and hold it there, and I can still punch you. It does not stop anyone. A taser, on the other hand, when used correctly, can stop someone in their tracks. A taser fires 2 darts that are connected to wires, and when the darts are spread properly, you get what's called NMI, neuromuscular incapacitation. That locks a person up, they fall down, they have no control over their muscles. Even if you got a taser, whether it be a Pulse C2, or you got one of those older X26Cs, or even if you got the X26E or the P model, or the X2, chances are you haven't trained with it. At most, you've probably only watched a little DVD that came in the box, or you went to Axon's website and watched a short little clip, if you even did that. And so you probably have no knowledge of the fact that if the probes are too close to each other, you do not achieve NMI. And when that happens, you're obviously not going to know that the easy, quick fix remedy for that is to do a follow-up drive stun. Even if you have the X2 taser with 2 cartridges in it, 2 shots, shoot 2 different people with it, or shoot the same person with both cartridges. Because you don't know what you're doing and how to use it, you can still fire both cartridges into the person and they still fight through it. Happens all the time. You can go on YouTube and find plenty of taser videos where the police are shooting tasers at people and it's not effective. And these are police officers who have gone through taser classes before. Now, my rant about taser classes can be another video in of itself, but the fact remains that there are trained police officers out there who are deploying tasers on people, and they're not recognizing the fact that the taser is cycling very loudly. If you can hear that taser cycling very loudly, you don't have a good connection. And they're sitting there continuously cycling the taser, hearing the loud arc, and thinking that it's going to do something when it's not. And the quick, easy fix remedy is to do a follow-up drive stun. Complete the circuit. Just drive the gun into another part of the person's body. That stuff's going to be beyond you. So just because you bring pepper spray, taser to this doesn't mean you're going to be any more effective. Just because you got it doesn't mean you're going to be good at it. Same goes with a gun. If you're out in public, you're just going to be wearing your regular street clothes. You won't be in a uniform or anything. And so when you start wrestling with someone and trying to subdue them or whatever, bystanders are going to be watching. And they could be getting themselves involved, trying to break you two up. Or if you pull your gun out, trying to arrest this person, all these people are going to see is some dude in regular clothes pulling a gun on someone. When the police get there, after you've arrested someone, you got them down on the ground and, you had handcuffs. You put handcuffs on them, or you took their shoelaces and tied them up, whatever. When the police get there, there's a good chance the police are just going to let them go, because the police did not observe that person doing that with their own eyes. So if you go back into KRS 431.005, it talks about things police officers can arrest for. And in Kentucky, a police officer has to observe things for themselves in order to make an arrest. The only times that or they have to have a warrant. They either have to observe it themselves or they have to have an arrest warrant. The only times that they can arrest a person without having seen the person do it and without having a warrant, it's called a warrantless arrest, is very, very, very few topics here. It's 4 things. One is domestic violence. For example, a husband beating the crap out of his wife. They can make an arrest on that without having observed it themselves and not having a warrant. Shoplifting is one, DUI is one, and violation of EPO, DVO is one. Those are the only things that they can go arrest somebody on and they did not observe it themselves and they don't have an arrest warrant for them. Everything else, they have to observe it themselves. So, you may have observed this person do whatever, but because that officer did not observe it, well, he's going to let them go. And your word doesn't matter. It doesn't count. They can't take your word on it and then make that arrest. They have to see it themselves. Got a dog outside going crazy. The only time the police can rely on someone else's word is when they are talking to another police officer or to a dispatcher. So if you go look at the laws, it's actually written in the law. I can't remember which KRS it is, but a police officer A can observe something and police officer B does not observe it at all. Police officer A can tell police officer B what happened, and because of the way the law is written, officer A's word can count just the same as officer B seeing it himself. And the same applies with dispatchers. Dispatchers can tell the police something, and then the police can act off of that. It doesn't work with private citizens to police. You can have the best photographic memory in the world, and you can spit off details left and right and all that. Doesn't matter. They can't take your word for it. They're going to tell you to go to the county attorney's office and file a criminal complaint, and then the county attorney's office can issue a summons or an arrest warrant at that point. So the fact remains that even though you've taken this person into custody, when the police get there, there's a good possibility they're just going to let them go. Now, that's not to say that they don't take the information themselves and go to the county attorney's office and get a criminal summons or an arrest warrant filled out after signing their affidavit and everything. That's still a possibility, but right there in the heat of the moment, yeah, it's a good possibility they're going to have to let them go because they didn't see it themselves. And some of you may be thinking, well, hell, I'll just take them to jail myself. Well, there's some problems with that. Number one is getting them there. How are you going to get this person to the jail? You know, throw them in the back of your minivan, put them in your car. A lot of times when police arrest people, those people don't want to go to jail and they fight. And they're in the back of a car with a cage, and people have been known to kick out windows. And plus, not obviously not all people, because that people do fight the police, but there's a lot of people who they have a fear for resisting the police because they know there's repercussions. They know they can get in more trouble. They know if they put their hands on a cop, it's not going to end well for them. They get an extra charge. You as a regular citizen, they're not going to have any fear over you. They're not intimidated by Joe Blow and his button-up collared shirt. So they'll have no hesitation fighting you. You put them in the back of your regular car, how are you going to keep them in that car? Because they're not going to have a fear for getting in trouble for escaping you. They can get in trouble for escaping the police, but they chances are they know they're not going to be able to get in trouble for escaping you. You put them in a regular car, they're just going to be able to open the door and run. Even if you turn the child locks on, there's nothing separating them between you, so they can come up to the front of the vehicle and go out the passenger door or attack you and cause you all to wreck. So aside from that issue, let's say that you was able to get them in the back of your minivan and drive them on down to the jail. Well, when you get down to the jail, you're going to run into a problem there. Most all agencies, when they get to the jail, they'll either, depending on how the jail's set up, each jail's a little bit different, but typically they'll get the person out of the car and they can walk up to a door and press a little button on the wall, and the little buzzer goes to the main control room. Or there's a little buzzer stand right in front of a sally port, like a big garage door, and they can drive up in their car, hit that button, and then the garage door can open. When they hit that button, they talk to main control, and they typically say something like, such and such police agency, one adult male, and then they open the door. If you even know what door to go to try and get into the jail, and you go hit that buzzer, what are you going to say? This is Joe, I got me a citizen's arrest, I need to put him in jail. Chances are they're not going to open that door. What they're going to most likely do is one of them will come outside to see what the heck's going on. And while they're doing that, they were calling the local police, and the local police are going to be coming down there. Because I don't think, and I could be wrong, I don't think anyone as a citizen has arrested another citizen and tried to take them to a jail. To me, it's unheard of. So you're probably not even going to get in the door anyway. But for shits and giggles, let's say they open the door for you and you walk in with your arrestee. You're not going to have a citation to fill out. And jails in Kentucky have to have a citation to keep someone. Citations nowadays in Kentucky are pretty much all electronic. There are some paper versions out there, and I forget when it's projected that there really won't be any paper versions really hardly left, but they're pretty much all becoming electronic form. So even finding a blank copy of one is going to be difficult for you. But let's say you somehow found a blank copy of a uniform citation. At the very top where it says agency name, well, you're not an agency. I guess you could theoretically write your name into it. But the biggest thing is a lack of an ORI number. And an ORI number is an originating agency identification number. It's on all citations, and it's unique from agency to agency. Your city police has their very own unique ORI number. Your sheriff's office has their own very unique ORI number, and your state police has their own very unique ORI number. It's kind of like the agency's social security number in a way, I guess you could say. And those ORI numbers are used to track those citations, not just locally, but at the state level and the federal level. And everyone who goes into jail has to be fingerprinted. And so when you get to the fingerprint machine, you have to have an ORI number to put in there, or else it's just, I don't even think it's going to process it. It's going to be like a website that you go to and you try to like do a checkout or whatever, and you haven't filled out a required field. It's not going to let you go to the next page until that required field is filled in. So without the ORI number, you can't transmit a citation to the state's Criminal Justice Information Branch for the fingerprints, and the fingerprints aren't going to go to the FBI without that ORI number. So no citations, and even if you found a blank citation, no ORI number. And the biggest thing of it all is I really don't think anyone's going to go for it. I don't really think that any jail is just going to let a random citizen walk into the jail with another citizen and allow them to lodge them for some crime. It's just totally unlikely in my opinion. And the citation, all the copies of the citations that are at the jail, the clerk's office comes and gets them in the morning and takes them to the courthouse. I don't even know what they would do at that point if they found this random, blank citation that had your name on it, at the agency name on there. That's a good question. I don't even know what they would do at that point. They might think it was a joke. So really, there's not much that you can do with a citizen's arrest. You can't put someone in a jail. It's basically just a legal defense to be able to temporarily detain a person. Now, I believe that before 1978, you were able to kind of do a little bit more than just detain a person. To my understanding, I believe that before 1978, you could do a citizen's arrest and then take that person before a justice of the peace or magistrate. Because back in the day, magistrates and your county judge executives had actual judicial powers. But there was an amendment to the Kentucky Constitution, and they've been stripped of those powers. About the only thing, they're responsible for is managing fiscal court, and that is the managing of the county, roads and funding the jail and stuff like that. They're in charge of the money, basically. And then they can do marriages. Aside from that, that's about it. That's about the extent of their powers. But before, way back then, before 1978, they did have some judicial powers. So the citizen's arrest law, you could do something with it back then. Now, there's not much really you could do with it. About the only thing, in theory, that you could do after doing a citizen's arrest on someone is you could take them to the county attorney's office. But even that is going to probably present some problems to you as well, because in some counties, the county attorney's office is in the courthouse. And to get into the courthouse, you have to go through the bailiffs. Some of them. There are some counties there's no bailiffs at the front door. But if it's one of those counties where you got bailiffs at the front door and you're dragging this person in cuffs or tied up in a rope or whatever, the bailiffs they're really going to get really curious and they're going to stop you, and you probably wouldn't even make it to the county attorney's office anyway. But if you're in one of those counties where there's no bailiffs at the front door and you just kind of walk in and go up to the county attorney's office and talk to them, and you're dragging this person along with you, the only thing that you could expect to happen out of it is you could get the county attorney to get you to fill out a criminal complaint. You would basically sign an affidavit swearing that this is what you saw and this is the evidence you have, etc. And the county attorney could then decide to give that person a criminal summons to show up to court, and they can go ahead and take that information and get it into the court docket and everything, and they're going to have to show up to court for it. And if they don't, they can get a failure to appear. So that's one possible option. The second option would be that they can go ahead and fill out an arrest warrant there, and then sheriffs can come pick them up. But that's, in my opinion, not going to happen. In theory, I think it could happen on a technicality. But I mean, the likelihood of that ever happening is probably none. I would say that most likely, if you drag somebody in there in a pair of handcuffs and demanded to talk to the county attorney, and the county attorney came out there, they'd probably scratch their head and say, let me go get some papers, and then go call the police, because in their eyes, there's some crazy person in their office with another person handcuffed. And it's just not going to work out the way you think it is. The other issue that obviously could arise from this, and it's probably more likely one, is aside from just temporarily detaining a person for a short amount of time, if you try to do that crap, like take them to a jail or anything like that, you're probably going to be looking at charges filed against you. They'll most likely going to be looking at unlawful imprisonment or kidnapping. And if you're working in a security industry, you're a security guard or something like that, they'll probably even tack on impersonating a peace officer or something like that. So there's not really, there's more cons to citizens arrest than there is some pros to it. Yeah, is it good that you have this kind of protection if you need to go detain a person? Yeah, sure. If you see a pedophile trying to take a little kid from a park, and you go over there and knock his ass out and hold him on the ground until the police get there, well, you're covered. You have that legal cover there. But I mean, beyond that, you got to take these other things into consideration. What is your level of training? What kind of tools do you have? Are you more of a risk and more of a problem than you are being able to solve something? And the chances are, as just a regular Joe citizen, you're probably going to be more of a detriment than anything. You're probably going to get yourself hurt. You don't have the training or experience to be detaining people. Security industry is very large, and there's different kinds of security. You have unarmed security, armed security, loss prevention, etc. The same issues I just talked about come into play for security as well. Security in Kentucky doesn't have any more power than a regular citizen does. There's actually no laws on security at all in Kentucky. So security has to do the same things that regular citizens do and have those same limitations. Now, some security do have tools. They got the pepper spray, they got the taser, stuff like that. Most of them have training with it, and then some of them don't. But even with security, there's really not a whole lot of scenarios that I can think of that would be beneficial for them to be actually detaining someone and holding them while police are on their way. Not in our current laws. Now, what security can be doing to detain people is a very, very short-term restraint of a person. For example, when you get into your use of force laws in Kentucky, using physical force and the protection of yourself, another person, or property. Protection of property. If security tells someone that they're no longer welcome on that property and that they need to leave, and that person doesn't leave, well, security has the legal right to temporarily restrain that person, detain them, put their hands on them, basically. And it doesn't have to be, full on, let's go ahead and wrap them up or whatever. They can put their hand on them and kind of guide them towards the door. Now, obviously, if that person resists and start bucking up, yeah, they can lock them up, put their arms behind their back, put them in a hold, some type of restraint hold or something like that, and basically hold that person against their will where they can't move freely on their own and escort them off that property. Now, once they get off that property, they have to take their hands off of them. They can't detain them until the police get there because there's nothing in the law that allows for that. And if security escorts a person off property and they continue to hold them, then they are looking at some potential unlawful imprisonment charges, kidnapping charges, and since they're in a uniform, that depending on the officer there and what they want to do, they can even tack on an impersonating a peace officer charge. With security and in doing, detaining people and everything, it's the biggest risk out of it is having quote unquote target put on you by some of the local police. And it's really, it's dependent between, obviously area to area, but, even in a city, it's going to be from officer to officer. You may have some officers that are, quote unquote, more understanding. And then you can have some other officers who just have an extreme prejudice towards security and would look for any reason just to give some security a impersonating peace officer charge because they don't see the point in security or how security operates. So trying to affect citizens' arrest can be detrimental to you in the security field in that sense. So, as I said before, I see some of the merits of citizens' arrest law. For the example I gave earlier, with trying to detain a pedophile or something like that. But in the most part for it, it just kind of opens up a lot of risk, especially if it's just for regular people with no training, no experience, no tools to be able to use. And then for security, it can even open up some more risk to them on things going on. There's really not a whole lot I can think of off the top of my head that you would want to be trying to make a citizen's arrest for anyway, because the biggest thing that's going to come into play is the police just letting those people go because they didn't observe it themselves. Now, if you wanting to take some kind of action, you're wanting to see that person goes to jail, your best bet is just to go in person down to the county. If the police won't do anything about it, your best bet is just to go down to the county attorney's office, ask them to give you the paperwork so you can fill out a criminal complaint. You'll sign an affidavit swearing, what you saw, what you observed, what happened. If you have any evidence or whatever, you can mention that in there, give them copies of it, and then the county attorney's office can issue a summons to that person for them to show up to court for this issue, or they can fill out an arrest warrant and have the police go get them, and then they'll still obviously show up in court. If you have any questions or comments about citizens' arrest, go ahead and leave them down in the comments section. If you like what you see here, give me a like and a subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and head on over to the Facebook page and do the same over there. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.